This morning I'll be reading Psalm 24 from 1 through 10. The earth is the Lord and everything that's in it, the world and all who lives in it. For he founded it on the seas and established it on the waters. Who may ascend the mountains of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? The one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not trust in an idol, nor swears by a false god. They will receive blessings from the Lord and vindications from God, their Savior. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek your face, God of Jacob. Lift up your hands, you gates, be lifted up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and almighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, you gates, lift them up, you ancient doors, and the King of glory may come in. Who is he, this King of glory? The Lord Almighty, he is the King of glory. And let everybody say, amen.
Good morning. Let's look at that slide that we've got up there to begin with here. This is a slide that shows the inner planets of our solar system. Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. Earth is kind of the biggest one there, isn't it? Yeah, it makes us feel pretty good. We're kind of important. We're the biggest one on our block here. That's kind of cool right there. But let's flip to this next slide. Now that's the Earth compared with the rest of the planets. Yeah, there's Saturn, there's Uranus, there's Neptune, Jupiter. The Earth is about the size of that red spot on Jupiter. In fact, the red spot sometimes is bigger than the Earth. Just that little spot. You see how big Jupiter is? It's massive. It's massive. You could put 20 Earths inside of Jupiter, maybe more. It's huge. It kind of puts us in a little bit in perspective, doesn't it? Well, let's flip to the next slide. That's us compared to the sun. Us compared to the sun. Jupiter's dwarfed compared to the sun. I do have someplace I'm going with this, so stick with me. But look at that. Look at how small the biggest planet in our solar system is compared to our sun. And look at how small Earth is. Earth in that picture there is so small that it can only be represented by one little pixel on the screen there. Again, kind of puts us into perspective, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Flip to the next slide. Here's our sun compared to some of the other suns that are around us. Okay, look, there's Pollux, there's Sirius. Those aren't even the biggest stars. Look at Arcturus. Our sun's dwarfed. You can't even represent the Earth on this picture accurate in size compared to the rest of those stars. You just can't do it. It's so small that you can't represent it there. Now, Arcturus is a big star. It's huge. It's massive compared to our sun, let alone our Earth. Kind of, again, puts us into perspective, doesn't it? One more slide. Look at Antares. Look at Antares. Betelgeuse, not the movie. The star. Goodness gracious. Look at how big that is compared to Antares. You see Antares down there on the bottom row, and it's about the third one from the left. Just about this big. Antares is huge. It's massive. It's massive. When we look up into the night sky, we don't see something that big. We don't see something that big. We see little pinpricks of light. Those stars are so far away from us that they just look like the tiniest little dots of light in the sky. And if you're downtown Atlanta, if you're downtown anywhere where there's a lot of light, yeah, some of these stars you don't even see. A lot of them you don't see. You get out in the country and there's a whole panorama of them. There's a lot more, and they're beautiful, but they're just tiny. They're just tiny. We're just a little speck in a big, vast universe. Vast universe. So big that something as big as that huge star Antares looks like just a little pinprick of light when we look at it and we see it in the night sky. That's how big our universe is. It's amazing. It's mind-boggling. But that's how God is. Mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. When we consider how small we are compared to the earth, and then how small the earth is compared to even the other planets in our solar system, it's humbling. And then when we compare ourselves with the stars in the universe, it's even more humbling still. The earth is the Lord's. And this puts us into perspective. It shows us just how little we truly, truly are. And yet, Psalm 24 tells us that while the earth is the Lord's, we are also His. While this vastness of the universe has been placed into motion, we're the culmination of it. We're the reason that He created it. We'll look at that a little bit more. This psalm was written by David. Psalm 24 was written by David. It's an important psalm, quoted several times in the New Testament. You probably recognized it and recognized some of the things that are in it. It's a very important psalm. You can imagine David when he wrote this. I mean, this is how I picture David writing this particular psalm. I bet he was out in the fields at night. I bet that's what he was doing. I bet he was sitting on a hillside. His sheep were bedded down for the night. Everybody was accounted for. Everybody was okay. And he was out there watching over them. And he looked up and he saw the panorama of stars in the heaven. And he wrote this. And he wrote this because he was so amazed by the creation that he saw around him. We're going to see a couple of things from this psalm today. We're going to see that God is the creator. We're going to see that we are those who He seeks. And then we're going to see that He is the warrior fighting for His people. First of all, first thing I want us to see this morning, I want us to see that God is the creator. God is the creator. He is the one who has made all of this. One more slide there, Karen, please. He made everything. How did all of this come to be? How did Arcturus come to be? How did Antares come to be? Did all of this happen by accident? No. It was created by design. God made it on purpose. He made it on purpose. There's no other explanation for how all of this came to be. There's none. None. Even if you believe in the Big Bang Theory of how creation happened, there still had to be a prime mover that set that into motion. There had to be someone who created that matter that exploded. There had to be someone who created the forces that caused that to explode. It didn't just happen by itself. Someone had to set it in motion. God. Cosmologists, they're scientists who study the beginning of the universe. There's a whole branch of science dedicated just to what happened at the beginning of the universe. They explain how the metals came to be and how the atoms formed and how all of this sort of set itself into motion and developed into our universe. Even they cannot explain how it all happened to begin with. They can describe what happened in the aftermath, but they cannot describe what happened to begin with, how it all came to be. But we know it was God. It was God. It was done by design. You know what the percentage of scientists that believe in God? 85%. 85%. Learned that on Card Sharks this week. So it has to be right? Yeah, it's on Card Sharks, it's right. No, that's a high percentage. That's backed up by other statistics I've read. They know that there's so much order in the universe. There's such a grand design that it had to be done on purpose. It couldn't have just happened. There's no way that this system could have happened without it being done on purpose by design, and it's God that did it. God is the one who created it all. He made everything. He made everything, and it belongs to Him. It belongs to Him. The earth is the Lord's. David tells us that because God created it, He also owns it. Ownership implies authority, right? Ownership implies authority. If you own something, you get to decide how it's used. Somebody can't just come in and tell you how you're going to use whatever it is you own, unless it's the government. We know this, and they usually mess it up when they get involved. But it implies authority. You get to decide how you're going to use your resources, your land, your house, your car, everything that you own. Well, the earth is the Lord's. It belongs to Him, and He is the one who has authority over it. It's His. God allows us to live here. He's placed us here, and He allows us to live here. He's given us everything that we need to live. If He had placed us here and set this all into motion, His work ethically could have been done by just setting it into motion and giving us the plants and the trees and the animals to survive with. His responsibility could have been over at that point because He would have given us everything that we need. See, He gets to set the rules because it's His. You set the rules in your house. He gets to set the rules in His house. He gets in charge, and He's responsible for following. We are responsible for following His rules. That's what we expect. Somebody comes into our house. The rules are you don't trash the place. You don't leave a mess everywhere. You don't smoke inside of it if you're non-smokers. And you don't kick the dog. There's certain things that we don't allow in our own homes, right? God is the same way because He owns all of this. He is the one who's created it all, and it's His. But God seeks us. He invites us into His presence. That's the second thing I want us to see from all of this morning. He invites us into His presence. In verse 3, He invites us here. This great being who created this vast expanse looks for us, these tiny, tiny, insignificant little beings, these tiny, insignificant little things here. He invites us into His presence. This incredible God who has the power to set something as vast as Arcturus in the sky wants us to approach Him and wants us to know Him. What does God need? Nothing. He owns it all. He can create anything He wants. That if He lacks something, He needs nothing. And yet He seeks us. He doesn't need anything, but He comes and He wants to know us. He wants to understand us. This should amaze us. This should be incredible. This great and powerful being comes down here and He wants to have a relationship with you and with me. He could create incredible, massive, mind-blowing, unimaginable things in this universe, and yet He wants to come down here and He wants to see you and He wants to see me. He invites us into His presence. He invites us into His presence because He loves us so dearly. And He hopes that we will respond to Him. There's only certain people He will allow in His presence, though, according to verse 4. Only those with clean hands and a pure heart, and those who do not lift their souls to idols. Those with clean hands, those who will see God, are innocent. Those who see God are not guilty of the blood of others unless that's their job in protection for us. You know, the Bible does not say thou shalt not kill, it says thou shalt not murder. There's a difference. Killing is the taking of a life. Murdering is the taking of an innocent life. Sometimes killing is unfortunately necessary in order to protect the greater good of society in our country. Only those with clean hands are going to see God, innocent hands. Your hands clean? They're not when you gossip about somebody. They're not when you lie about them. They're not when you undermine their character to make yourself look good. That's not having clean hands. Clean hands are those that are innocent in their dealings with other people. Clean hands are those that uplift other people. And a pure heart, those who are honest, those who live in a way that is good, are going to see God. Those God seeks are those who have a pure heart, those who follow a path of purity, not those who follow a path of lust for physical things or lust for power or lust for things, but only those who are pure in heart. Their hearts are honest. Their hearts are good. Their hearts seek what is right. Those are the ones that God seeks. Those are the ones that God looks after. Those who do not lift their souls to idols. Those who do not those who do not recognize the authority of God in this world are not going to be able to approach Him or are not going to be allowed in His presence. Those who worship themselves or seek to glorify themselves or seek to have everything their own way will not approach God. But only those who do not lift their soul to idols. You know the problem with this? The problem with this is that we're all guilty of at least one of these things. We are. We are guilty. We're guilty of breaking the laws of God. All of us are. All of us are guilty of breaking the laws of God. None of us is innocent in this life because we've all sinned one way or another. We've all sinned. It's supremely arrogant to say that one of us is better than another because we're all sinners in need of forgiveness. Every single one of us has fallen short of what God wants us to be. All of us have. All of us have. We're very eager to judge each other at times. We're eager to compare ourselves, our spirituality with others so that we can feel good about ourselves. We're eager to lift ourselves up in comparison with others because we want to feel good about who we are and what we've done. But there's not one of us in this room that's any better or any worse than anyone else sitting here. We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat. We're all sinners in need of God's forgiveness. Every single one of us. But there's vindication. That's the good news. According to verses 5 and 6, we're going to receive the Lord's blessing. When we seek Him, we're going to receive forgiveness. Through the blood of Christ, David did not write specifically about the blood of Christ. He foreshadowed it. He prophesied it in the Psalms and in the Old Testament. But we know today that our vindication today comes through Jesus Christ, whose death on the cross gives us an opportunity to set that weakness aside, whose death on the cross helps us to be righteous in the eyes of God, to be forgiven in the eyes of God. This incredible God who could have anything that He wants, died on the cross because He wanted you and He wanted me. He owns everything in the world, everything. But He died on the cross because He wants you and I. And He knew the only way that He could have us, that we could be close to Him, is if we experience the forgiveness that only He can provide. He wants us to be with Him. That's what this psalm is about. He wants us to be close to Him. He's the creator of all of this, who reaches down to grab hold of us. And He is the warrior for His people. That's the third thing I want us to say. He's the warrior for His people. He is the one who will fight. He is the one who will battle for His people. Look at what it says up there. Verse 7, open up ancient gates, open up ancient doors, and let the King of glory enter in. Who is the King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty. The Lord invincible in battle. There's no one who can overcome God. No one. No one. There's no one that's strong enough to defeat God. Open up ancient gates, open up ancient doors, and let the King of glory in. Who is the King of glory? The Lord of heaven's armies. He is the King of glory. If you want to do an interesting study in the Old Testament, go and look up the phrase, the Lord of heaven's armies, or the Lord of the armies of heaven. is repeated a lot in the Old Testament, emphasizing God as the commander of the armies of heaven itself. Why use that language? Because he knows we need protection. Because he knows we need someone who can fight for us. He knows that we're not strong enough to fight the battles that we face in life on our own. If we think we are, we're fooling ourselves. He knows that there's got to be someone there who can be strong enough to go to battle for us and with us every single day. And that's who God is. The Lord, strong and mighty, the Lord Almighty. Open up ancient gates, open up ancient doors, and let the King of glory enter in. What are these ancient gates? What are these ancient doors? Could be one of two things, according to David here. He could be writing about the gates of Jerusalem. If he wrote this psalm as a shepherd boy, he was prophesying. It could be talking about the gates of Jerusalem. Open up the gates of Jerusalem and let God come into that holy city. It could be the gates of the temple. Open up, O gates, the gates of the temple, open up and let the Lord come in. The temple wasn't built till Solomon's time, but again, David might have been prophesying that as he wrote this psalm. Let the King of glory come in. Let him enter in as the God who is indefeatable in battle, who is strong and who is mighty. What gates is he seeking to enter today? He's seeking to enter the gates of your heart. He's seeking to enter the gates of your life. He's seeking to enter into who you are because he wants to be with you, because he wants to be close by you. He wants to stand next to you every day in support of you because he loves you so dearly. We have the commander of the armies of heaven. Can you imagine how much power there is in the armies of heaven? Not just one army, but armies, plural. I mean, God himself is enough to wipe out the entire world. He did so already in Noah's day. We saw that in VBS. But he's got an army, armies of powerful beings at his beck and call, just waiting to come and to be on our side, to fight with us and to fight for us. The earth is the Lord's and everything that's in it. It belongs to God. And God wants us to belong to him. That's what he's calling for you today. That's what he's seeking from you today, to belong to him. Not to belong to yourself, not to live for yourself, not to go off and do things your own way, but to live in concert with him, following his commands. Have you allowed him in? Have you really allowed him in? We can say we're Christians and still not allow God to have control over our lives. We can say that we're Christians and still not have allowed to enter into those gates of our lives because we're disobedient to him. We don't conform to his will. We don't work for his church. We're not devoted to its mission. We can keep God at arm's length and still call ourselves Christians, but that's not what he wants for us. He wants to open up our lives. He wants to come in. He wants to be the one who is the leader in every situation of our life. He wants to be the one who is our guide, the one that we follow, because he wants to lead us to a good place. He created this world. He knows it best. He knows us best, and he knows what's best for us. And he wants us to follow those places. Are you following him? Are you really devoted to him? Are you really conforming to what he wants you to be? That's the question I want to leave you with today. I'm going to have Shirley and our worship team come forward now and lead us through our invitation. But that's the question I want you to ask yourself this week. Have you allowed God to come through those gates of your life and to really take control? Whether you've been a Christian for 10 minutes or 10 decades? Has God really come into your life? Has He really been given control? Have you really allowed yourself to conform to who He is and to what He wants you to be? Why don't we stand and we will sing through our invitation hymn.